What the hell was it for?
That report was from Bob Walker. You're listening to NewsHour from the BBC. I'm Razia Iqbal. Ukraine now, and former TV satirist Volodymyr Zelensky, who played the Ukrainian president in his show, was sworn in today as the country's actual new president to the strains of Ukraine's national anthem. Volodymyr Zelensky has never held public office outside of satire, but a month ago he won a resounding election victory over the incumbent Petro Poroshenko. In his first speech to Parliament, Mr. Zelensky said he would work to defend Ukraine and to end the conflict with Russia.
I am certainly not afraid of making tough decisions. I am ready to lose my popularity, my ratings, and to never lose our territory. Never.
Well, let's go to Kiev now and speak to our correspondent there, Jonah Fisher. So, Jonah, tell us about the significance of the inaugural speech, talking about ending that conflict with the Russian-backed rebels in the east being his top priority.
Well, the significance, for starters, is basically this is the first time we've really heard a lengthy political speech from Mr. Zelensky throughout his election campaign, and in the months since he won that election, he's not had this sort of platform, he's not taken this sort of platform to talk to people about what he might stand for. So yes, interesting that he made the conflict in eastern Ukraine a priority, stressing that he would be doing everything, as we heard there, to try and bring peace to that area. Quite how he's going to do that remains to be seen. He has very little wiggle room. He made the point that he wasn't going to concede any territory in eastern Ukraine. Of course, parts of Ukraine are occupied by Russian-backed forces, and Russia, of course, has annexed Crimea. So there's very little scope on the Ukrainian side to negotiate and do things differently. I think there is some people do have some expectation that the change of personnel here in Kiev might lead to greater dialogue with Moscow. There might be an improved channel of communications. So, I mean, in a nutshell, it's going to be hard to break what has effectively been a stalemated situation in eastern Ukraine for the last few years.
Okay, so that's eastern Ukraine, remains a challenge. He won by the largest margin ever in a presidential election in Ukraine. What do we know about his policies beyond what we've just heard?
Well, we're still trying to piece it together. We've had a period during which Mr. Zelensky's advisors have been out on talk shows trying to brief people as to what might come next. There's been a lot of talk about reforming the judicial system. That is really an absolute must-do if Ukraine is going to tackle the endemic corruption that really permeates almost all aspects of life. So that has been stressed repeatedly. Mr. Zelensky himself today talked about reforms politically, trying to remove immunity from prosecution for MPs and various other things. But it's still something of a blank slate what we're seeing from Mr. Zelensky himself. We know that there are various different factions within his camp. Some of them reformers, some of them connected to a powerful oligarch, some of them connected to Mr. Zelensky's former career as a comedian, as a TV producer, and we have yet to see really which of those three factions is going to come out on top. We don't know who's going to get the key positions in Mr. Zelensky's cabinet. When that announcement is made, which may be in the next few days, we'll get a better idea as to exactly what the Zelensky presidency will mean in practice.
Jonah Fisher, our correspondent, joining us live from the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. Now, the thorny issue of pursuing those who joined the Islamic State group and committed crimes. How to bring them to justice has been a subject considered by several in Western capitals for some time. Today, the Swedish government has been talking openly about setting up an international tribunal in the Middle East. Iraq has been mooted as a location. I've been speaking to Sweden's Interior Minister, Mikael Damberg. Sweden has already set up its own war crimes unit. What does he think an international tribunal in the Middle East can achieve that national courts can't?
We continue our work in Sweden, so I think we have 5 open cases right now, and we also support the UN efforts to collect evidence in the region from a Swedish perspective. That must be done, no matter what. So if we find war crimes in Sweden, we have the possibility to convict people in Swedish courts. But if you want to state an example for the world, if you want to put this terrorist cell also in the history books of humanity, I think an international tribunal or a mechanism in the region would be good from a moral perspective to bring accountability to the table, but also closeness to witnesses and evidence. It might be easier to get more people convicted.
Do you have a location in mind? There are reports suggesting that you would want it to be in Iraq.
We haven't made that choice yet, and we don't want to present the Swedish model for this because we rather would like to. We see that many European countries are actually talking about this now. Half a year ago, or it was not that much of an issue, but it's growing in many European countries. That's why we have taken initiative to invite to expert meeting in Stockholm in the beginning of June, where all the countries that has interest in this can participate and exchange experience and also ideas of how to move the process forward.
How would you characterize those conversations? You say that other capitals and governments are interested in this. Is this something that you think has sufficient momentum and enough agreement?
I think the momentum is growing. Many European countries actually feel that this might be a good solution. So more and more countries are open for the discussion. But I'm also humbled because this is a very difficult path forward. We know all the obstacles, and each and every one of the countries that are evaluating this way forward is also looking at the problems. So that's why I think it's the right thing to do now, to bring the experts together to see if there is a possible common way forward.
Any international tribunal will cost money. Where do you think the money will come from, should come from?
I think all countries that see the possibility of an international tribunal understands that there will be costs involved. How it will be set up, how it will function, will determine the costs. But everyone that are arguing for this also know that it comes with a price tag. But I would argue that without a clear conviction of the crimes committed in the region, I think there's also comes with a moral price line.
Have you been speaking to governments in the region? Have you spoken to the Iraqi government?
Of course, we've been listening to also players in the region, and we also read the public statements from some of the players in the region that has been open for a discussion. So, of course, we take notice of that, but I think if you want to do this for real, I think it's good that more countries join together and it's an orderly process going forward.
There are anxieties in some countries that for any court like this to work, it should actually be located in the region, and any convictions and people being imprisoned and so on, those people should stay in those regions, because there is an anxiety of having anyone involved with the Islamic State group brought to the countries where those people were nationals.
There's several questions that has to be answered if you want to follow through on an international tribunal. That is for sure one of the questions. Once again, I would like to gather more relevant partners in the same room, experts from different countries, to compare the kind of notes that every country have, but also on the possible ways forward. I think for Europe to be involved in an international tribunal, there has to be some international standards for this kind of proceedings. So, of course, the death penalty will be a red line, I think, for many European countries. But there's still a lot of questions that has to be answered. But I think most countries that have thought of this has done their own national evaluations and also looking at the way forwards. Now it's time to compare them and to see if we can find a common way forward.
That was Sweden's Interior Minister Mikael Damberg with the governing Social Democratic Party. Game of Thrones is one of the most unexpected TV hits, and I certainly don't have to tell fans that it has just aired its final ever episode. Nearly 200 broadcasters have been showing it around the world. It's hugely popular and the most pirated show of the moment. Dragons, dynasties vying for power, and lots of spectacular battles and imaginative murders. With its huge budgets and production values, it's basically a series of films which has been going on for about 8 years. And it's become a cult and a communal experience. And now it's ended. In this report by our Los Angeles correspondent Sophie Long has been to a party in Los Angeles.
this goes beyond loyalty.
There's no question that the cultural phenomenon that is Game of Thrones has been a ratings hit. In terms of expectation management, though, some are giving it a resounding fail.
Well, I think everyone's going to be disappointed because I think expectations have been built up over such a long period of time. And season 8 was, 18 months in the making? And I think people have had that amount of time to build up as to how they think it should end. And I think it's just going to lead to disappointment.
Did you place a pre-order? Yeah, yesterday.
Sales at Sprinkles Bakery have been anything but disappointing. In the run-up, they sold around 30,000 special edition cupcakes. According to manager Alison Ott, that broke the previous record set this weekend last year by the royal wedding.
It starts with a dragon fruit lemon cake, and it's that pink color, that pink dragon fruit color. And then it has a blue, an ice blue blueberry buttercream frosting on top, and it has a black cherry candy dragon glass. This has been our all-time best-selling limited edition cupcake in the history of Sprinkles, as you can see here with these long lines that are going out the doors.
You must all pay your respects upon bending knee to the king.
So I'm standing at the entrance to a bar near Venice Beach, and as people come in, they're not just being asked for their ID, but to go on bended knee before the manager, William Welsh, who's sitting in a throne in full Game of Thrones costume. It's quite something to behold.
Los Angeles is a city that takes entertainment seriously.
How do you feel about Series 8 so far?
I feel like probably the majority of people that have watched it, and I do not feel that great about it.
Why not?
I just feel like the writing's kind of poor. The character development that has progressed throughout the series hasn't been continued. This isn't what the majority of people that have watched the show would predict.
I just love it. It's like it kind of like parallels what's going on today in a weird way.
I love it because I'm in entertainment, and I think it's important to have like strong female roles, and I love it because of that.
Some people have said, though, that there's been a woman problem from the start, like sexual violence and what they've done in season 8. Would you agree with that?
I do. I think that I think it's very subjective. There's definitely, obviously, none of that is good, but I think they're also trying to do a storyline that relates to the time. And in the time that they're doing the storyline in, that was something that we went through. So if anything, it shows the growth to where we are now.
Then it was time. Nails were bitten, breath was held, heads shaken and bowed. The debate over the quality of Series 8 will continue, but in the United States, the credits have now rolled. Winter is no longer coming.
Sophie Long reporting. Do tell us what you think about that or anything else you've heard on our programme at BBC News Hours. The programme's Twitter handle at Razia Iqbal is mine.
This is the BBC World Service. Now, what happens if you get left behind?
Migrant stories. Millions leave their homes every year as economic migrants. But what about those they leave behind?
They call this the motherless village, and you can really see why.
These are their stories, which give an insight into why migrants leave and whether they ever come back.
Listen to Left Behind at bbcworldservice.com. And in 10 minutes, today's guest on Hard Talk is the former champion British swimmer turned sports commentator Sharon Davis.
And I'm passionate because I suppose there's many things during my life that I've had to fight to try and get that level playing field. And as a competing athlete, it's very hard to raise your head above the pulpit at the moment to voice your opinions. And I think the few of us that have done that are sort of ex-athletes just feel that we have to try to do our bit.
But now it's back to Razia Iqbal and NewsHour.
And a reminder of our top story this hour. The Chinese smartphone maker Huawei has sought to reassure millions of global customers following Google's decision to end cooperation with the telecoms company. Emily Taylor is with the International Security Department at Chatham House. She told NewsHour how Google's decision could harm both companies.
It could quite well backfire, and this is the risk of protectionist policies in a global supply chain. The Huawei handset market is enormous. It's the second biggest handset provider in the world. And so to bar Google products from that market could affect Google as well.
Doctors in France have withdrawn life support from a man in a vegetative state after his wife and parents were on opposite sides of a legal battle over whether to keep him alive. More on that story shortly. This is NewsHour coming to you live from the BBC in London. Doctors in France have stopped feeding a patient who was left paralysed and in a vegetative state. Vincent Lambert was in a road accident 11 years ago. His parents have fought to try and keep him alive, and his mother, Vivienne Lambert, has called the authorities Nazis for withdrawing her son's food and water. Euthanasia is illegal in France, but doctors may sedate patients until death if there's not a chance of recovery. The case has split his family and the country. Ken Wilshire of The Guardian newspaper.
Very slightly, and the doctor said he was reacting. There then followed years of
Yes, sir. Hold on, man.
Only righteous man shall stand tall. So keep on moving. Keep on moving. Rastaman, move on, move on. Rastaman, move on, move on. Oh, anything that you can do, dreadlocks can do it better. So move up. Believer in love, and nothing gonna take me now. No more
This is them, yeah, my place.
Satisfaction go come until don't you fret now, I'll get love yet. Got this faith within me, just you wait a minute. Let me tell you truthfully about this good world and me. I want peace of mind, don't you see? I'm gonna get it, I know it's there somewhere for me. Gonna get love, I know that I will. Satisfaction go come